Okay, so in the last video, we talked about how Sir Isaac Newton said the world was going to end in the year 2060. When this information became public in 2003, people were shocked. I mean, this is the person who discovered gravity, developed the 3 laws of motion, invented calculus. However, in his personal manuscripts, was not only deeply religious, he believed that 2060 would be the return of Christ. In 1936, his personal manuscripts were auctioned off. Sotheby's held the auction. What's funny is that Christie's also held an auction that day on the same block. They were auctioning off Impressionist art. Only 2 people showed up to the auction for Newton's manuscripts. So the 2 men split it down the middle. John Maynard Keynes was a famous economist, and he had a passion for statistics, analytics. He spent 6 years reading through the documents, and it completely shattered his idea of who Isaac Newton was. Turns out that Isaac Newton was not the world's first modern scientist. He was the world's last great magician. He was secretly an alchemist. Alchemy had been outlawed 300 years prior. These manuscripts were 10 million words long, and about 1 million of them was about alchemy, and about 5 million words were religious, while 3 million were about math and science. It's also said that he burned some of the papers before he died, and most of the alchemical papers, like you see here, all this Leo energy, were stamped not fit to be printed. The irony of all of this, Isaac Newton's teachings are used to prove that nature is mechanical, makes modern science seem soulless. Yet Newton himself, in his personal manuscripts, mocked scientists who denied the existence of God. And as we see, it's the same divide and conquer strategy, but in this case with knowledge, separating math from metaphysics or science from spirituality, when actually both are needed in order to make true advancements. Personally, I think this is why CERN is so successful. It actually was able to discover the God particle, because we know the rituals, we see them. They're combining science with spirituality, maybe not of the light. Okay, so Newton believed that all ancient texts, ancient temples, Greek and Roman myths, and all biblical texts were actually coded alchemical recipes. And in this BBC documentary, where a lot of this information comes from, they actually had a modern day chemist recreate a recipe that Newton decoded from an ancient Roman myth and said it would create a purple alloy. And it checked out. It really did. He also believed that Solomon's temple in the Bible was actually a code to the universe. Oftentimes when we're talking about alchemy, what comes to mind is the philosopher's stone, which is a substance that was believed that you could turn base metals, such as mercury, into gold or silver. This is the reason that alchemy was outlawed to begin with, because clearly the monarchy didn't want peasants growing their own gold. Then what control would they have? And in Isaac Newton's manuscripts, he sure was trying to turn mercury into gold. But he claims it was not for the monetary gain. He believed that God used gold in order to create the universe. He also said that in alchemy, metals seem to come to life and that they grow like plants. And there was many unpublished documents about the vegetation of metals, which we do see with things like bismuth. He also said that the earth was alive and that the earth took breaths. In all of his manuscripts, he never said where he got his information from. He was actually very secretive about it. Many believed that there was religious or spiritual means to how he was getting some of this information. Now let's get to the other half of the documents. Keynes took the alchemical documents, and Abraham Shalom Yehuda took all the ones relating to religion. And that's how they ended up at Israel's National Library. Now, there's also some other reasons why his family did not want his personal religious texts to become public. And that's because, wait, before I say it, take it up with Isaac Newton, not with me in the comments, okay? But he believed that Christ was not as powerful as God, and he did not believe in the Holy Trinity. He believed that the church was corrupt, and that the founders of the church were some of the worst villains in all of history. But because the church was corrupt, and it was so intertwined with the state, in order for him to keep his position as a scholar at the Trinity College, I mean, he worked at the Trinity College. It really wouldn't be smart to say you think the Trinity is blasphemous. But it was a requirement to have a clerical role. So he actually went to the king so they could exempt him of his holy duties. Because although he was extremely religious, he did not want to be a member of the church. And on his deathbed, he refused the last sacrament, which is when a priest blesses a person before they die. It's like a TSA pre-check for heaven. He finally came clean on his deathbed to his two closest friends. He said, "I made my peace with God and I don't need anything from this corrupt church." He also said, "I've been an alchemist illegally for the last 50 years. Now, this contrast between his public and his private beliefs might come as a shock to people. But you think in today's world, it would be even easier to understand with social media. We see this contrast every day, where people only show a part of themselves publicly. Okay, I know. You want to get to the apocalypse, 2060, the world's ending. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so how did he get 2060? What did he say was going to happen? Okay, so this information is coming from Stephen Snobelin, who is the scholar who worked with the Israeli Museum to go over a lot of these manuscripts. And this is an essay that he wrote, not only about what he learned, but how the media sensationalized this information. Okay, and as you can see right here is the 2060. This is the actual page. As we said earlier, he believed all biblical text was coded. And this was based off the book of Daniel. So he got the date 2060 because he believed it would be 1260 years that the corruption of the church would reign. So then all of these parts, which we can see translated here, is him trying to find out what is the start date. So he played around with a lot of different start dates, but he settled on the year 800 AD because Charlemagne would become the first Holy Roman Emperor. Now, according to Stephen Snobelin, he was surprised that the media didn't include the other date, which would have started in 1774, leaving the apocalypse for the year 2034. Okay, but don't worry. He didn't say it was the end of the world. He said that there would be war, famine, plague. The same thing everyone else says. I mean, you did watch my apocalypse series, didn't you? If you haven't, go to my profile, click right here, and here's my apocalypse series on YouTube with an extra hour of added information. But I mean, don't be shocked. War, famine, plague. Like, where have you been? Noon said it would only be the end of the world as we know it because Babylon will fall. And there would be a kingdom of saints on earth. That the second coming of Christ would happen and it would be 1,000 years. Same thing that Nostradamus said in that apocalypse series. That there would be a 1,000-year golden age. That there would be a new earth, guys. You can check out all of these Newton papers on the Cambridge website. You can search the text because New Earth comes up quite a few times, and that there would be a millennium of peace. And this is what we call millenniarism. Millenniarism, a millennialist movement. And this is a fundamental transformation of society where all things will be changed. And it exists in various cultures and religions around the world. And it's the belief that radical changes to society are going to happen after a major cataclysm. Make sure you scroll back and watch my other video on 2060 about the remote viewing project because they're saying a very similar thing, that there's going to be a fundamental change to society. So guys, no matter how bad things are, no matter how apocalyptic the world looks right now, we're gonna pull this off. Literally every prophecy, every single one of these prophecies and people remote viewing and people being hypnotically progressed into the future are saying the same thing. We got this.